7.
Call it 7:01.
Order at 7:01.
Sounds good.
Minutes from the special August 14th meeting.
I was not there, so I will abstain.
I wasn't there, so.
Yeah.
You were there.
I believe
I thought
said
it
you
was
were
a
there.
special oh,
Well,
That
to
was
a
good you were there.
technically, it was
yeah,
technically,
I was there. I wasn't at the other special meeting, field trip meeting.
yeah.
Had to teach. Oh.
Yeah. Motion to accept.
I'll move to accept. I didn't see any.
Second.
Second.
Anyone opposed? And then there's notes from the Cooney Rock. We didn't have did we have a quorum there? No, technically not.
Attending 5.
Yeah, so we did have a quorum.
That makes a quorum, yeah.
Quorum, so they're minutes. Motion to accept.
So moved.
We got out, we got rained out, but.
Yeah.
We got-
And
Miranda moved, if you'll second.
Vicky's, anybody opposed? Okay, I don't see any public hiding here.
I apologize, the times are approximate.
Ken, how dare you?
Yeah, but we decided to adjourn early when there was a second clap of thunder.
Oh. Did you scamper out of the woods quickly?
It started pouring.
Oh, no,
Persuaded.
that is never good.
And you were all ready for it too.
We were.
You were?
We were.
Okay.
Good.
We ran down the hill.
I was gonna say, that's not a hill you wanna go down. What's
Some of the old roads, it wasn't quite as
Yeah,
bad.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Straight down.
the straight, get that wet and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Management plans, okay. The template was attached and then we have, that was actually just attached a while ago, but it was shared with us by email, the second draft of the Cooney Rock management plan.
And we have the initial proposed red line or red text draft from Sue from last month, which I re-uploaded. I realized I hadn't dropped that on the agenda, so I ran down to my office to put that in right now. So that way we have all of that in the same place. And it's a regular meeting, so I can do that. Those are here now.
Well, it is mentioned on the agenda.
Yes,
Yeah, so you were just adding supplements.
correct. So we have a couple different drafts now that we're moving towards with changes in the layouts and what is applicable and what isn't. I don't know how you guys want to really discuss this, but we're reaching the point now where we have a couple different operative drafts and we've tried to adjust management plan templates a few times. So how should we discuss? How should we kind of cross compare? Were you waiting for me to tell you that? Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's very terrible. Well, I suppose, I guess, Miranda, you started in on trying to use the draft template.
I did.
Look, this is a field test of the draft template. How did it work? Did it feel overly clunky? Was it not particularly useful?
Well, so I mean, I thought it was fine for filling in background information and things that I had been able to glean from the other documents, but in terms of actions that like actual management actions, I really just wasn't sure where to put them ultimately because the POCD wording that has been put in the template is vague.
Yeah.
Relative to the and so I just really didn't understand where I should be putting it. Especially I didn't understand how to judge if something had been done or hadn't been done and what time scale I was supposed to be doing that on and how the heck I would know if it had been done in the past 20 years or whatever since the last draft of this. So I really, you know, if you look at this, I think eventually you come to comments of mine on the table, or it's just like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
And so, you know, looked at those, and then at the end of the document in the notes section, I listed all the things that I thought that we had discussed that I felt should pop up somewhere in the management actions. And I mean, they were just our take-home points from the walk. So I thought I could get the introductory general stuff down fine, but I wasn't sure how to use the tables. And I don't know if that's just because I don't know what's intended or if they could be worked on.
Yeah, that's what I've been working on the Dorwat Lions Field one. And I was finding the table kind of limiting, you know, that the POCD goals are fine, but you know, many of them just don't apply or kind of restrict you into an area.
So
It-
would it?
It might be more effective to list the things we want to do and then have a column to say which POCD goal it aligns with.
That was my first thought as well, is we rip out the table with the POCD goals.
Yeah.
Instead, we have these, and then I go back and add which POCD goal each of these align to. So it's action and then pertinent goal, and we can list that as a number. And that's also way easier to update when the POCD update rolls through this coming year, and will actually let us put first and foremost what we see as management priorities, as opposed to trying to fit all our management priorities into prearranged boxes. So let's rip out the POCD table and instead we'll
Yeah, because I was,
go.
yeah, my mind was working more into, you know, corrective actions, if you would, or immediate actions, and then ongoing, routine one, you know,
Annual monitoring,
yeah,
that sort of thing.
an annual or
Where-
semi, you know, like, you know, unlike marking the trails, do, you know, I don't think we have the resources to really do it twice
Twice
yearly,
yearly, no.
you know.
This was
Yeah,
optimistic. So this
Yeah.
table pretty much comes out of Joshua's trust. So
Yeah.
this is Joshua's trust's ideal for how often these should be done.
They don't reach it.
No, they don't reach them either. There's this would be nice in an ideal world.
So I felt when I was filling this out, one thing that went through my mind is, so if I say this goal has been met, are we saying we don't need to moving forward? How is it going to look? And I just didn't know how
Right.
to do that. And I also don't know what's been done and what hasn't.
you know, because like the first one there, you know, having a survey, you know, does that really have to be in all the goals, or is it just up in the notations with the map and such,
Right. So I mean, so JT has a goal to have a survey for each of their properties.
yeah,
Is that necessarily a town goal? I don't. There should be a survey for each property.
it's required by, in the acquisition,
Yes.
yeah.
However, that doesn't mean that we have them all, right? Do we should, but if we've had it for a long time, for example, do we have a survey of the common fields?
Yes.
We do?
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
good.
That was a subdivision.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's good. So it should be easy to go through and mark all of these and give volume and page.
A couple of them, we have the
Have that information.
okay, yeah, but on a couple of them, we have the survey. The stuff by the former Vinton School. but the survey copy that we have was done by the town and not sealed.
Yes,
So
of
it
course.
cannot be put into the town clerk's land records.
Right, there was another couple of.
Yeah, there's a couple other ones, but
Yeah.
that one I remember you know, that they can only accept something that's been
Right.
sealed by a. And I don't know whether the engineering office has a sealed copy. They may not have bothered to seal it because they did it for themselves
Right.
and they know it's good.
Well, that's kind of the problem if you don't seal it and file it, is you get a generation turnover and then people don't know if it's good anymore.
Especially that one.
Yeah, that's,
So,
but no,
So what we can do easily is we can move acquire survey out of the standard management actions here, and instead we move it up to the top where we get the base information, and then we instead get volume and
okay,
page.
okay.
Right.
Well, it should be part of the acquisition steps. And I believe it is.
well, there are a couple of ways you could do this. One is you could, as Miranda did, put information about the various deeds that were involved,
Yeah,
including book and page number references, so it's easy to find them. Unlike Jim and I struggling to find them.
You struggled, so we don't have to.
Exactly.
yeah,
But there's also survey information in those summaries.
Right.
And in the files that we fixed up in the
Yeah.
clerk's office.
Yeah.
But we can do two things. One, we can put like survey map information, deed information here at the beginning. Or we can attach the summary that I did that has all that information plus information about the process of acquiring it, sort of why we did it, what was involved.
Yeah.
That kind of
Yeah.
thing. I don't
Yeah.
know if you want to attach those, or do you want to just have a summary at the beginning?
I think we should list the, at the top, we should list the assessor's information for the parcel and the, and all the pertinent land record,
Okay.
to start back on the, so if somebody would know from looking at that, where to start and abstract the title.
And this is also very critical on Cooney Rock to make sure we have a documentation of the easement across the Olson property.
Yeah.
And the agreement with the Corps,
Yeah,
so that those don't fall by the
I
wayside.
don't think the Corps' letter is in the town land records. But-
I think it's-
But I'm
I think it's the
thinking that
license.
like on this one, we should add the appendixes into the doc X. So they become part of the file. Because when I noticed going through them, there were several places where only that had been saved and not the referenced appendixes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, so, in fact,
I can hear about overview.
yeah, that's what started me thinking about that when Miranda, highlighted the attachments.
Right. That's a good point.
Okay.
so I think it's just a matter of deciding what would be the most useful to
Mhm.
people who are coming to this 5 years from now.
Right.
And they want to, the Olsons are up in arms about whatever. So we need to quickly find the deed that has that easement
Right.
with the Olsons. And I think just having it right at the top. And I know Miranda did that, which I thought.
Yeah,
Right.
I thought that was gonna
Yeah.
be thinking about,
This is very good.
yeah,
So I agree, we should do this.
yeah,
And we'll have to fix that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the Olson property was John Olson. The Olson property easement is with Chris Olson.
yeah.
Why do people not have completely unique names? Family
The same
names.
family.
Family
That
names.
has something to do with.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all of that makes sense. having attachments at the end where we can reference these things, I think
Yeah.
that'll make sense. Having those as appendices, we can pull out pull the survey info out, bring it to the top. Invert the way we're thinking about the POCD table, where it's the actions which we associate with the POCD items as opposed to the POCD items which we associate with actions. And then in terms of going down to other things in standard management actions, I see, Miranda, here you have most of these items were done at some point in the past and may need to be done again now. I think part of this is the way that JT thinks about these is that you check all of these when you start your management plan, and then hypothetically, you should twice a year, you should get it out and then go through it, and then you do the checklist of, okay, we're at the half year mark, so we just check these ones.
So in that case, it would make more sense to me to have goal met not be answered with yes or no, but with the year it was done.
Yeah.
Or the month it was done, whatever scale resolution makes sense, because I mean, and then we can start building a record of when it was done.
Right, and that is the most useful for management. That's how I manage my conservation easements.
Yeah.
Because to me, if a goal is met, okay, that's done, now on to the next, like, and it didn't have a column for saying yes and continuing.
Yeah.
Some of them are recurring things.
Right.
And maybe the last time it was done, but also a place for, if you're doing a field visit and you find that something needs to be done, there ought to be a place here to essentially identify that this is a shortfall.
Is that where we asked the town council to approve the management plans? Is that something we add as a supplement, a field visit report for,
And
What's changed since last time we broke
Yeah.
out the management
Yeah,
plan?
see, and the thing to remember on this list, Joshua's Trust pretty much has gotten to the point where they have at least a steward or co-stewards for each property. And this list here serves as the steward's report back to their land manager, whatever title they have,
Yeah.
I think an important thing with the management plans is that they have to be accessible enough to turn the task of managed land into something far less daunting. Particularly, I think, for people who are coming into this space and trying to figure out what exists, what's been done. The full weight of the history of Connecticut falls on your shoulders if you have no starting point. And it's just, these are trees,
right.
50 acres of them, figure out what you need to do, right? So being able to have checkpoints on, okay, well, these are the things, this is when we were last out, we noticed these things here, even if they go for a few years without being updated in between, being able to have checkpoints lets us know. It's the same thing that I found indispensable is with things like aerial photography. Good aerial photography makes it so much easier to manage stuff because we have checkpoints and we can see the evolution of things. This allows us to see the evolution of things. So if adding something to these plans makes them more daunting, it comes out. So the POCD stuff comes out because it makes it more daunting. It becomes useful if we have the goals in there and then note that, and this is related to action plan this, because it lets us apply for grant funding easily. And when you need to apply for grant funding, you just say it occurs with this, and you type that into your grant application, right? So that'll make sense. I can add the most recent completed year column. So I'll reconfigure this table. I'll probably turn it into a sideways page, it's gonna work better that way. But I'll reconfigure this table to add a most recent completed year and then like last analysis, gives space to talk about what's going on. The frequency I think is still important, but without that most recent completed year, it doesn't give us up. But that also lets us make it like a living database, because as opposed to it being individual sheets, we can just keep it rolling and I can set it to, notify when it's time to relook at this property. Biennially, want to thank you again, Charlotte, for correcting me on biennially versus biannually.
Different.
It's different. Other thoughts?
I would like to do something with the field trip notes. Because they really are not necessarily management goals.
Mhm.
They are things that we noted that either were great or needed attention or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that should be another appendix.
Yeah.
And in the initial part of there should be most recent field trip and the date.
Mhm.
And then, see appendix.
Yeah.
And that way, there's a record of what we saw on that date.
Yeah, and by storing them, I'm starting to envision a notebook or a folder for each property, probably a computer folder, but, and, all the field trip notes so that before you go out, you can look at the past 2 or 3.
Right.
All of these are already preserved in the special minutes that we're taking that
Right.
Ken has been so good at
Yeah.
getting us, which means we just have to move them around and then it becomes not a running log of all the actions of this body, but a running log of the properties themselves.
And I think Vicky's idea of putting it is basically the field trip is a tool to understand the status for updating the management plan.
Right, and I was going to go on and say that some of the items in that field trip batch of notes is going to feed into updating the management
Right.
plan.
Yeah.
But you
But-
still need the intact field notes because some of that stuff is not part of updating.
Yeah, and you're right, but as an appendix, they give a point in time picture of our evaluation of the parcel.
And it would be good, for the next field trip, which is, I don't know, a year from now,
Right.
5 years, you can look back and see what was noted.
And it's easy to reach directly into that folder, take out the minutes like, all right, this is what was noted last time. These are the items of
Yeah.
history. As we walk it, we can highlight, okay, this is still here. We fixed this. We know we did this, right? And that builds a living record. And
And I
that,
think the field trip should be looked at as well, how often are we updating the management plans? Every 5 years?
5 would be ideal. Realistically, I would expect 10.
But that doesn't mean we can't go out and look at properties on these things that are identified as do it annually.
Yeah,
But they don't necessarily need a full field trip.
yeah. And we can get in the habit of doing, 1 or 2 of us go out on an informal field trip and compare to what's happening.
And then you just, at the next meeting, you just report back and say, we hiked here. We brought out the plan and this is what we noticed. Here are our notes. File them in the folder as most recent field hike notes and.
Yeah,
I would say we don't want to lose least recent field trip notes, though.
No, so I think we keep all of the going forward, whenever we decide that we're gonna go to the property and take notes. We compile those notes. If you just take them on a sheet of paper, bring them into the office and I'll scan them. And then we'll just put them into the folder and that will let us build the continuous growing record. But we'll append the most recent one or maybe the most recent 2 to the individual plans as the plans get updated. And then just as we bank the old versions, because storage is cheap and small now that it's all on solid state drives as opposed to folders that are taking up my office and the clerk's wall.
yeah,
So,
And then there, of course, is translating the notes from the field trip, whatever is in the management plan, into action.
right.
Yeah.
So we don't quite have a mechanism thought out for that yet.
Right, so the
Actually, we do. That's what Miranda is doing, is writing the plan based on what's in the file plus the field trip.
Right, but but we're saying, we need to put up signs.
Right.
Okay,
So it's,
that needs to get translated into putting up those signs.
so what?
Right, but
Yeah.
that's part of creating an action list in the management plan of short-term action.
The question is
Yeah.
making sure that town staff then take these plans as they get updated and then have a good way
Yeah.
to turn those actions into completed goals, to get boots on the ground
Yeah.
and mobilize
Yeah.
resources to do the things that have to be done.
That's where your concept of putting together a database to record, okay. Cooney Rock needs signs at this trail intersection and this trail intersection. And then,
And they should say X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
And then a note as to it was done.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, I mean, you know, is basically a task list database.
Yeah,
With a complete.
That's where a goal met for short-term,
Exactly.
ongoing actions, goals never met. Unless the goal is how often you get to it.
Yeah,
right.
But on single actions, whether they're short-term or long-term, there's goal met.
Yeah.
And
and a date.
I could
Date,
imagine
yeah.
that the
Date,
management
yeah.
And a
plan
date. So,
would identify things to do in the next 2 years. List them, and
I'm,
they wouldn't be these things that happen every 2 years.
Right.
But there'd be one-offs.
so I'm thinking about how I would actually do this and whether or not I could integrate our work order system where anyone can file something with Public Works to take care of a task. Whether I can take our work order system and integrate it with like an access database. So we have for each of the parks, we have like the running tasks, and then we like you open it, it generates a line, and then it's also got on each park auto notifications set up to send to the pertinent person's email for like, this is the regular maintenance checks you have to do. I'm sure it's possible to do that. I don't want to build that.
The question on something, the question on that is how much would it really say? The other thing I'm thinking in that database we might want to include is nice to have. That's to say, you know, we
Okay,
really
yeah.
could have a bridge here. These old, you know, walkways should be pulled out of the swamp like at Simpson's Woods, you know, so that when Parks and Rec or the planning office is contacted for a volunteer hour project,
Yeah.
there can be quickly generated a list of 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a Eagle Scout project or the National Honor Society looking for a public service thing.
Yeah,
Or
things
we-
like the boardwalk at Marrow.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good
Yeah, that's a good,
project for
yeah,
buddy.
yeah,
That might develop into more than nice to have, it might be.
yeah,
Well, it's been a constant issue since the
Yeah.
park opened.
Mhm.
We've gotten around it in numerous ways, but nothing has been
Yeah.
successful, so.
you know, that's a case of things like that, so they can be. You know, not just brief action items, but moving ahead, you know.
So I get, you know, in terms of the goals for the park, when we come down, when we break out, outside of, you know, we have standard management actions and, you know, what you're supposed to do with the park, and then we'll get down to the goals section. We can break our goals into a couple different categories, right? There's near term,
Mhm.
long term, recurring, and then there is probably, in addition to that, of like chronology, there's importance of like, this is very important, but it is also long term, right? Like, this is a goal that we are going to have to do within the next 10 years, and we know that, but we have 10 years to tackle it. Whereas a nice to have, right, it's like, it would be nice to have this, and if it doesn't happen, right, like, that's okay, this would be a major improvement to the park. And some of those, most nice to haves will probably be long terms, because the nice to, if they don't happen, it's not critical, right? But there could be certain things where, like, if you're trying to do a collaboration or be part of a regional effort, then that is a nice to have in the short term, where we would like to get this done sooner rather than later. And if we can't mobilize the resources for it, it's not the end of the world. So I think breaking, so the other goals table continues to come into clarity in my head. So goals, we have both chronology, which is recurring, short, long. Now, rather than recurring, short, long, let's do short, medium, long. Once or recurring, right? Because sometimes it's just an ongoing thing versus a discrete task. And then criticality.
And Michael, I know you've been talking about including a column for the date last completed, but one thing that has kept occurring to me is that if we're trying to evaluate if something has successfully been done at the frequency listed, then you need more than the last time it was done. So, I mean, it could just be dates completed and then you enter. So, okay, I can look back. This was done in 1998 and then 4 years later in 2002 and hasn't been done since, or something like that, and you can see that. And it just becomes a growing list, which there might be some value to that as someone who's walking into this and looking and going, okay, I want to know how the site has been managed over time.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. We have an ideal frequency, but then we keep a running log of how often we actually did it.
yeah, the data scientist may is starting to design a database.
Mhm. Yep.
And it may be that the file for each park just has a running log of what's been done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's making sure that running log is either keyworded or organized in such a way that it's searchable. Because we can add new log entries at the bottom, but we need to be able to tag those log entries such that they can be organized and be like, let's talk about the best case scenario. Everything we come up with here today is brilliant and without flaws, and thus it works perfectly for 50 years, and it doesn't need to be touched up ever again. That means that eventually there's just going to be a massive list of things, and if we can't search it rapidly, then someone will be scrolling through it in the exact same situation as leaping through things in the vault, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's
The other thing to pull with that is when you go to the town manager for your summer trail crew. I have
How much
all
work
these
do I
things
have?
that
Right.
I have all these things outstanding. I could use 35 people.
Another,
but I'll
thing,
take two.
Michael, on
Yes.
your other
Yeah,
goals
fine.
list. Think another thing besides the timeline and the importance is the resource demand. Some things are gonna, what?
You're talking about money?
Well, some things are gonna take a lot of volunteers, like getting rid of barberry from multiple acres in there, doing that.
Well, or needs a
Multiple
a
years,
staff
too.
person from Public Works.
Yeah.
Versus a volunteer.
But there's a difference between having labor and capital.
Right, I mean, I was just talking about the labor and the things.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a restaurant review, it has dollar signs.
I could do the same thing.
If there's more than one, it's beyond my budget.
Okay. Okay, this is all really, really good stuff.
No.
Okay, do you want to take a moment and look at?
Oh, Juliana, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if things sort of go in that wish list column, that I'm afraid that they'll fall off. And I'm wondering if it might be better to put them into the long-term goals. So that it just seems to me when things get put on a wish list, they kind of get swept to the side.
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
It depends on what we decide to put there. You know,
Very true.
I was envisioning, so we could, or Michael or Jay could quickly come up. If somebody's looking for volunteer or a scout project, there's been a couple of times when Eagle Scout projects have been, people, what would be, where do we need something, kind of thing,
Right.
as opposed to a very concrete planning,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think it comes down to whatever kind of column you think would be most useful, obviously.
Well, what I'm seeing is that we document things in the management plan, but then we maintain an Excel spreadsheet access or something with all the properties and everything that's needed for them, even if you can link the two together so they can be brought up fairly easily,
Hmm.
properties. Remember that when we started doing these management plans, roughly 25 years ago. Technology has advanced a little bit in the quarter century.
And I just have one other thought, and this is purely semantics, but in calling these management plans, if somebody, 20 years from now is coming in and sees management plan, are they going to know that they can find the deeds, for example, and the acquisition history? So I'm wondering if the title of these should be broader, more inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I said, that's semantics, so.
Yeah.
You make a good point that it's more than just management because it's also property summary, but in terms of what folks in the industry refer to these as, there's always the issue of if you change the name to be more accurate but less jargony, people stop finding it when they search for it because they use the jargon when they're looking for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's definitely something to be said for like listing the top part as property summary. But yeah.
Yeah, it's probably wise to put some section titles in it at least. Because this thing starts with location of property, but then as you skim down it, you start to find where to look in the town. Clerk's up. And the other question is, if we store like the assessor's parcel number, how much detail will we need for location? Access is important. How do you get to the property?
Yeah, I can subtitle these and when we go to live versions, I can add bookmarks and table of contents to make it more rapidly movable. I mean, they won't be extremely long documents, but even still, that'll be helpful. Cool. Well, I have some stuff to do to adjust these, but I think this was very, very useful feedback. Testing, that's why we do it.
So can we see a pilot at our next meeting?
I can do that.
That would be, and I'm sorry, Miranda, to take you the bend again on your property, but I think it would be helpful to see this in action.
Yeah.
And decide if there's fine tuning that we
Yeah.
want to do.
What
What doesn't work.
What I'll do is, I don't think we have an October meeting scheduled. We do not have, unless there's.
No, we're odd people.
We're odd people
Yep.
in this group, and so the next meeting would be in November. And so what I can do is I'll take the existing 2 drafts we have. The Merrow Meadow draft and the Coney Rock draft. I will make all these changes. I'll put together a draft. I will send it out to everyone for comment, if anyone has any remaining thoughts, once we see the new one. And I will begin trying to take all the notes that you two had from all of the meetings and all the progress that we made and bring them into this style we're working on here and see if it works. Awesome.
And Miranda, I apologize. I did not include the information about the bike jumps.
I did, so.
That's something that really should be updated if we're gonna have the field trip notes. But because it was truncated, I'm not sure.
We had some things that were to say on that trip though.
Yeah,
And
but I
Miranda
forgot,
got it in her,
I forgot to include the bike jumps.
yeah, that and making sure you can see the sign from the road. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's obvious we need to talk to
Yeah.
the fire department.
Okay, that brings me to something that Jim thought of.
Hmm.
And that is when we have developed these wonderful revised management plans, that before we take them to the council for approval, we invite the butters to visit this management plan, either virtually or a face-to-face meeting, whatever we think would work the best. So that we get some input from them. For Coney Rock in particular, I think this is important.
Yeah.
Because the Olsons are concerned about trespass.
Mhm.
And I think we need to reach out to them in particular.
Yeah. When
And
we
then
first,
Jim had the great idea,
Yeah.
well, let's just.
yeah, when we first started doing management plans, we would invite the abutters. And basically, we take all the stuff and saves so the town council quote hearing was pretty much pro forma. Cause, and, we did such things as being afraid to invite people to the town office building, so we held a couple of them at the, over at the senior center, but, and, I think we may be able, if we have 2 or 3 ready to go, we can have, people in,
All at once.
in one, yeah.
And also that they could submit comments
Yeah,
just by email and
Yeah.
not come to them.
Yeah.
I think that,
I would phrase it a discussion of the draft.
yeah,
Not.
It's not a hearing, this.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
conduct-
think we have to be very careful to and how we invite comments and how we document our response to those comments. Because some people will interpret it as if it were a hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For Miro. I mean, the last management plan, or this management plan was done in 2000. This is my file on before 2000 for Merrill Meadow. Do we want to, I don't know, does the town have all the stuff on how the trails were, the paved trail was done and the bridges and everything, or
actually, yes.
did they have it somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, when Jim and I went through the files in the town clerk's office,
Mhm.
a lot of that information was there.
Oh,
You know,
good. Okay.
Architectural plans, the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
However, you may have things that are not in there now. So maybe
Yeah.
we should get together sometime.
Being the pack rat that I am.
Yeah.
That could be a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is all the.
Yeah.
I think it even talks about everybody, all the companies that applied for it and
Yeah.
all the hearings and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah. The other thing we discovered for the ecologists is on many of them in the, where we got the estimate of value,
Okay,
there are photos
Hmm.
of the property when we, at least from the road, when we first acquired it. And I found it interesting to compare those to
oh, yeah,
what,
yeah.
my mind knew was there. And I know like the Mohawk and Smileys have hundreds of years of photo stations. So
Yeah.
they can,
That's
Mark.
always interesting.
they can mark the changes.
Well, and actually that might be an interesting appendix, is we have air photos going back to 1934.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I know on my property, there's a world of difference
Yeah.
between 34 and today.
yeah,
And I think it might be interesting as part of the background to have those historic photos in an appendix.
That,
Or-
that's
or
easy
when-
enough to pull because I have all of those via the GIS. I can
Yeah.
simply snapshot those and
Yeah.
add them back in at certain like time points.
yeah.
But I will note, the 34 images, somehow photography just wasn't as good back then.
Really?
We've come a long way.
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
then.
Yes,
Well,
that is true.
Well, I don't know whether it's necessary to include them, but remind people in the text that the 34 and the other ones exist.
Mhm.
Aerial photography available.
Have
at
them
these time points.
accessible. at
Yep.
least.
Yeah.
They're also interesting in that there's overlap. So sometimes you pull the one photo that looks like it's the closest and it's a crummy photo. But this one over here that happens to include your area is just crystal clear.
But you have to have overlap if you're gonna get out your
If you're
stereoscope,
in stereo,
Yep.
right,
Oh, yeah,
so they're purposely flown
yeah.
with,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
Hmm.
And there also are the 1978 aerials.
Yeah.
As well.
Yep.
Well, I haven't seen it.
Those are better.
78.
Okay,
yeah. the bottom is fine.
So-
It's a part of
Yeah,
it.
It was in 1990.
that's very good.
Okay. Good. Do we want to take a look at the,
So are we going to talk about any other management plans?
yeah, that's what I was starting to ask.
Or are we
So,
going to simply go over what we,
It's a nice time of year to get back out and walk properties, if there's more properties to walk. I think the ones that remain,
I know we're gonna do Shelter Falls.
Shelter Falls,
yeah,
October.
okay. I was thinking of trying to organize something for Door Lions Field.
right,
And there again, I'm not even quite sure which side to start from. How much involved do we want to get with the Lions, with the active recreation part of the?
Well, that's good parking though.
yeah, that was my thought, is you can actually have people park there and it's flat and not windy.
Yeah,
coming out of it.
Just outside the gate, there is a big, wide, nice, easy area to park several cars.
It's convenient, almost like we designed it that way.
Yeah, after all, if you're gonna take your golf club out there and knock balls around or do, or let your dog run on the fields.
So do we wanna schedule that for a few weeks from now? Door Lions, and then do Shelter Falls in October?
Why not? Let's move ahead. Got
What
a
are-
minute.
what are-
Let's keep going.
What are people feeling? Jim, what's good for you?
I feel committed to Thursdays down at Mystic, but other than that.
Alright, not Thursdays.
Do you want to come, Michael?
Yeah, I'd like to be there.
Yeah,
Okay, that's Monday through Wednesday.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
that's workable for folks.
Fridays are just plain dreadful.
Well, Fridays, I'm not here, so.
Good, so
I
that
don't work
makes it,
Fridays.
Right.
Get it
So-
out of
Instead,
there.
We're doing Monday through Wednesday.
'Cause I haven't really walked the Dora and Lions trails. So this one would be a good one for me to go to. The 23rd, choosing arbitrarily now. One PM,
I can't do the 23rd,
do it,
but
just get
then
it.
that's a
It's-
rough
it's-
trail.
yeah.
I'm not sure I would
That's true.
I would navigate it well anyway.
I'm not sure I can do the 23rd. It depends on whether my son is gonna be home to handle the furnace service.
how about I send out a when to meet for that week and the following week? And then I'll send out one for later in October for Shelter Falls.
yeah.
I'll be out of town the following week.
Yeah, the thing is to wait for closer to October. So we know what's going on in our lives a little better.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Okay, so. Go. Step. 21, then. Big walk. Elder Falls. We'll just set that for 2 weeks later. Which will be following. Will be the 12th. The open space evaluation criteria. The committee to evaluate the open space evaluation criteria.
Who is on that committee?
Well, so far it's you and Ken.
Sounds good to me.
So moved.
Hey.
Well, I just wanted to put in some background. That was why I sent that comment.
And
So.
that stuff that Vicky sent to me,
Mhm.
and then the following pages, I took the criteria and just did some editing.
Right. So we received one email from Allison Hilding, concerning, wanted to know why these criteria are not weighted to help establish priorities, was the primary item. I think in some of our past meetings, we've talked about the difficulty with, kind of like assigning numerical factors to things.
The way it was done initially. And there were a lot of problems. I mean,
Yeah.
it just made no sense.
Well, there was a time when we were looking at multiple properties at one time. And we actually set up a matrix with the criteria
That's,
and rating columns and
Yep.
then
Yep.
totaled them. That works fine if you have a group of properties. But
Trying to do an objective assessment of this property's conservation value on its own is,
well, to compare it to other things,
right,
you're aware that, this is one of the reasons for, basically buying an individual property or recommending is a subjective.
well, yes
Yeah.
and no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yes and
No,
no.
Yeah.
no. part. Go ahead.
I don't think we're going to be in a position where we are reviewing 3, 4, 5 properties at a time,
No.
which is what we were doing in the 90s. I mean, it was just crazy. And it did help, but we realized that numerical assignments were pretty subjective. Especially, we had the town council doing it. And I mean, they were lay people, they didn't understand the difference between like an Atlantic white cedars wetland and a maple swamp. I mean, it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So we eventually just said, we're going to focus on prioritizing properties that have the highest number of these criteria that are satisfied, which again is not really the
objective,
Yeah.
exactly.
but
So but we found that worked the best.
But when you're looking at neutral property, to have a list to remind you of things to look at.
Yeah.
That, and then, because one of the things I have done on several occasions is somebody has said, this property the town should look at. And my response was to take the list that's now on the website, and it should be I think it's now gotten easier to find, and write up why it meets any of the criteria. Skip the ones that don't apply and also send us a map of where it is.
I think there's
But-
another danger with,
Start to build the evaluation package.
Tell me what you're gonna say.
One thing I think we need to remember is that once in a while, you're gonna have something that may not even be on the list that really disqualifies the property
Yeah,
completely.
And that-
For example, the place on 89 was just a nightmare, or it could have been a nightmare.
yeah.
you
Which
know,
place?
but it was one thing that really wasn't there.
well, that's why, Vicky and I have talked about that, and that's in this. But I think one of the problems, addressing Allison's concern, I think one of the problems with a prioritize and scoring kind of approach is somebody sooner or later on the council is gonna say, we have enough open space and all of the ones we have scored higher than what this one is, so let's stop buying.
Or why buy this one?
Yeah,
It's.
That's a question that comes up every time, right?
Yeah.
but I think it add fuel to that fire.
Yeah.
What happened was we obviously moved out of scoring and moved into using these criteria as a way of looking at all aspects of a property and deciding what was important about this property vis-a-vis these various criteria. And we've modified them over time to make this as inclusive as possible so that all the possibilities are there. And it really has evolved into what are the goals for preserving property? I mean, it sort of moved from, well, is this good enough to what's the point? Which is a very different way of using criteria. And I have found that has really served us well. What are the
Good.
goals
also-
of this property?
It also begins to develop what the management goal should be addressing.
Yeah.
And it really helped us in talking to the council about properties. Because we could say, this is really, this criteria here is really important. And explaining to them why it's important, because the council continues to change. So we are always talking to new council members. And this is a way of helping them understand what the town is trying to accomplish with this program. Most people from day one have said, oh, how many acres is the town's goal?
Yeah.
Because it's a number, it's easy. And of course, the state isn't helping any because they have a number for a goal. And I understand why the state did that, and I respect that. But that is not what the town is doing. The town does not have numbers in mind. The town has goals in mind.
Right.
And that usually has to be explained to new council members every time.
I think that
One answer I've given on occasion when that question came up was, we all know what happens when you set quotas, the quality you get.
there's, I think, over the past year and a half, between the conversation that was kind of started with the Parks and Rec master plan, which for all its faults, did bring up the point of you have a very large amount of things. Acquiring more things for the sake of acquiring them is not a sustainable strategy because of the amount of costs you will incur in upkeeping those things. So you have to be smart about what you acquire. And then I think that when we went to council last December for the Hertzler acquisition, which, good news, proceeding after being on pause for 9 months, things are happening, and I'm really hopeful that at our November meeting, we will own it. but being able to discuss with the council, this is a property that makes a natural expansion of existing open space land that offers us expansions in recreation opportunities, is good for watershed protection, which we're already doing. And these are the reasons you wouldn't want to protect it and why we don't think that they're, particularly relevant here, right? It would be very hard to build a house in here. And so it's not a particularly, useful house lot, which means we're not necessarily impacting potential housing growth or tax costs. So like, I think I'm sure, because things are always controversial, that in the past there was plenty of controversy around acquisitions, but I do think that recently things went fairly smoothly. And I think that this process of going through and yes, okay, what are our planning goals? Does it help us meet those? Yes or no, and just being able to say, it meets these 4 points. What do you think, council? Is 4 points enough to spend money on? Right, and just leaving it as an open item like that is frankly like a more the more freeform atmosphere makes it less like stressful of you must meet a 75 on this list or we will not buy you, right? That's my feeling on it.
And it is true, the town does own a lot of open space. It's a big responsibility. So you do have to think carefully about, do we want to add to this responsibility? But on the other hand, we have these goals, and it's not like this, no one would recommend buying open space just to be buying open space. I mean, and it's set up so that would not happen. I mean, the structure is there, so it would not happen.
So let's talk about the structure. This is because we're all doing the POCD, this is the perfect time to, where needed, make some revisions to the text of the open space acquisition criteria based upon the last 10 years of using them, where we've found there either needs to be additional clarity on how the process is supposed to unfold, reasons we make decisions, and other items. I know that document we have here includes various things. Ken, was this mostly your writing in the blue line, or was this mostly you, Vicky?
That's my writing in the blue line, but I drew on Vicky, what Vicky's.
The notes that Vicky had.
Yeah.
On the
I
comments.
didn't bring in the history, but I did the ideas that Vicky and I have had about adding in the negatives.
As reasons you wouldn't want to get it.
Potential.
So normally the beginning of the open space criteria talks about how they're supposed to be used, things that can have influence on the acquisition decision. Adding liability or management costs in there is very important to considering that we are being, fiscally sustainably minded on that. Reviews are conducted by the Parks and Natural Resources Committee and a recommendation is forwarded to the town council. The PNRC recommendation summarizes if property meets the criteria, but the PNRC recommendation is not based on fiscal or liability considerations, which are decisions made by the town council. I think that is a good item to note. We have so many boards in town, and there's a certain degree of civics education that we constantly have to do because we constantly, a society is constantly learning as new people come up and have to learn things for the first time. So having constant reminders of how this works and that this is a board that evaluates but does not make decisions. This is what we will evaluate. We will note this, but the ultimate decision on that has to be made over here. I think that's important. We did have a request from some of the folks who were the most recent pitch from several members of the public on an acquisition was that they didn't really understand how the process worked and how the town council made the decision versus does the PNRC make the decision and who starts this and whose responsibility it is. So I think laying out some of this makes a lot of sense here.
In that paragraph, should we have something about that we do in consultation with other land use advisory committees?
I think we want to bring the Conservation Commission in.
Yeah, and I can well see where we'd want to bring in agriculture. That's what I mean, but just a generic, in consultation with other land use committees and commissions.
Is that outside of the town as well? Like DEP or something?
Yeah, I would leave it open-ended, you know,
Right.
but, so that if we do run into a naysayer, well, why did you talk to those people? You know,
Well, we just, they seemed relevant because of X
yeah,
consideration.
well, that's what I'm,
Right,
that's,
yeah.
but to have it,
Other
No.
land use conservation orgs on consultants.
but I'm reluctant to put a list in there, a detailed list.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think leaving it open,
Such
limited,
as-
such as the Conservation Commission.
I would even stick a such as,
no, you need to be able to talk to whoever you want to,
Right.
yes,
and as such as gives you that.
yeah,
One thing I would point out is that if we actually follow this approach, we probably should have recommended to the town council a decision about McLaughlin Pond, as don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Well,
Mhm.
there's a lot of history there. I
Yeah,
don't think we
but-
want to spend time on
but
it.
the-
tonight.
But I'm just thinking it, because we're saying that the liability decisions are town council.
Yeah,
decisions.
I'm a little concerned
Um,
about that
yeah,
because.
in that case, we had staff convey to their executive session the sentiment of our discussion,
Yeah,
instead of doing it formally.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is important here is to elucidate how we start reviewing something in the first place. And there would be two pathways. Either the property owner directly approaches town staff with a potential offer, or town council refers something to the Pnrc for review.
Or PZC.
Or PZC, it's as an 824, if an 824 comes through, right? So for review, there should either be the landowner themselves directly approaches the Pnrc, or council takes it directly to you, or to PZC, who then refers to you as advisory. I think it's probably good to note that like these are the ways that we do this, because and this has been noted many times, but I'll say it for the recording, is this body doesn't create a list of priority acquisitions because we do not influence the market. We are not trying to have any effect on people's property values. That's not the purpose of open space acquisition. And so we don't go out and pursue acquiring things like a land trust might, a land trust whose goal is to acquire and preserve the land. We steward only and accept when there are offers made.
Recognizing that before you were here, previous town POCDs actually had lists of land that was
and features.
that was desirable to acquire. And before I joined the council, I actually wound up buying one of those parcels.
But that was the initial effort.
Right,
Starting from, frankly, the 1960s, when the Conservation Commission formed a list of desirable features, like 50-foot
Coney Rock.
Coney Rock.
Yeah.
and I think
Wetlands.
we've come a long way from that,
There you
and
go.
we're in a much better place, but
Yeah.
just know that some people are gonna remember that list.
Right.
And the list is still there. Why? Because the criteria, number one, mentions anything identified as a potential resource in a government planning document, which is fuzzily meaning you could
That could
refer
be
back
anything.
to the 1972 town plan of development. And there's this property right there in the town plan as desirable for acquisition. I mean, I didn't like this, but it was to keep certain people happy that this was left in.
Yeah,
I mean, we can leave it in. Personally, I would prefer not to have it in, But,
I think it's general enough that if we are writing up, if we're trying to explain why the town should acquire a piece of property, that's a good bullet to be able to cite.
yeah, oh,
You
no,
know,
I
yeah,
think
and
it needs to stay. I'm just not-
It doesn't refer to a parcel list.
No,
So it could be a list of wetlands, white cedar swamps should be preserved.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
within that bullet.
that's right.
Yeah.
And if there were a grant to preserve white cedar swamps, then that information could go in, that this has been long recognized as worth
Yeah.
preserving.
You know, and then again, the other one that if it has historical significance to the town or region, you know, that's pretty generic too, and, you know,
Mm.
and in keeping with even some of the federal rules, you know.
Should there be a mention that consideration is done during an executive session? Would that be helpful?
Explaining that, Jim, you're an expert on the specific reason for this, but there's probably some statute that says all considerations of real estate transactions
Yeah.
must be done in executive
Okay.
session
Well,
for government
well,
agencies or
you-
something to that
well,
effect.
Well, you have it cited here, you know, that generally speaking,
yes.
property considerations will be done in executive session. And you've got a CSG section.
All right, well,
one,
you
yeah.
see, I don't actually know that number because that's from before I got here and they just left it on. So we can assume that that's right, but I'll read that section of the general statutes.
Which will relate to gypsy moms.
Jennifer is pretty good. You know, but that,
I think it's good to check just to.
yeah, but have something about discussion on property
Right, discussion will normally
Yeah.
occur in executive session.
session.
Yeah, I think that was a misconception of people who were here.
Yeah.
And to speak to us. And I think that would be,
Right,
so they.
Well,
understand.
I think the misconception was that they thought they could float a property to us
that
to make a
they,
decision.
Well, but also they didn't realize that we wouldn't discuss it except in executive session.
Yeah.
They thought we were gonna discuss it while they were here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And they just couldn't hear that, the property owner needed to come forth, not them.
so I think we will lay out each of these things in the new guidelines.
Yeah.
There were a couple small language stuff, recommended here, which was good. And then some negative considerations at the end.
Right, and so we're not gonna make it a criteria, we're going to
Right,
just say. Negative considerations.
right. I popped this out to not be the same like style of bulleting as the other considerations, just from a formatting standpoint, make it distinct. But
I'm having a tension on calling them negative consideration, you know, that
It's negative.
I know, I'm thinking. like,
malice.
Ownership considerations or ownership responsibilities.
but well, they should be maybe they should be management
Challenges.
management challenges to be considered in recommendation or.
Or just.
Reasons not to buy.
There's
There's gotta be a synonym for reasons not to buy that we can use here.
Yeah,
Wasn't the thing after the colon kind of said that?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Significant.
I
Well,
thought
like,
Mary-
depends
I'm
on
married to
significant
negative.
one. Don't like the
Didn't have
negative.
anything better.
Right,
Mhm.
gonna
You know,
write down,
Mental comes to mind.
But, you know. you know, something about considering for future management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considerate, you know, like, you know, I can't think of a property, but I can consider, well, we like did accept, Tiff Pond with a dam on it.
Yeah,
Moss Sanctuary, you
right.
know,
Precautionary considerations.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
That would work. Significant costs involved. Precautions.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah,
addition.
cautionary
We're
consideration.
adding them, Samantha.
yeah,
Did you add those?
No, that's good.
Oh,
no.
Ken,
I'm
thank you for
showing-
adding.
I'm
those. That's so
just-
good.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
one thing that came up in the discussion earlier tonight that might or might not be a negative consideration is if it takes significant number of housing lots off the potential for development.
So there is something to be said for the idea that people will talk financially about highest and best use of land, but not using that from a financial standpoint, right? There are pieces of land which are important to conserve because they represent a whole bunch of things, but they could also in part or in whole be used to meet other planning guidelines. And you can
Yeah.
have a tension there where it's like, this would be good open space, but also it could host a bunch of apartments that we are in a housing shortage constantly. We're constantly in a housing shortage. Now, Mansfield's already building a lot.
So let's say,
Mansfield's building a lot of housing, but there's also a high demand for more houses. So the question becomes, do we preserve this piece of land or all of it, right? Is there a consideration of potentially not all of this land should be permanently preserved because it's highly developable and the critical natural resources or archaeological resources or anything that can be conserved without conserving the whole of the parcel. This can also be important even if it's not for housing, but if it's for consideration, like where do we put a school? Or where do we put a new police or fire station? Where do we put a new town
Yeah.
hall, right? Mall
Oh.
Sanctuary has a permanent 4-acre carve out in its development pattern for a nature center that was laid out exactly when it was acquired. Now, we've never exercised that because we don't have any money for it, but if we did have money for it, right, that's something that we could potentially do. So carving those things out as a consideration.
yeah. The other thing is from a town financial thing, single family housing or actually any housing has a negative cost.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but
Yeah,
the perception is that we don't wanna keep people from being able to build their
yeah,
house on a 2-acre lot.
I understand what you're saying, Michael, but it does not fit here in terms of posing a significant cost or liability to the town. It's a
No.
whole other consideration.
Right, it is,
Consideration.
it is a planning consideration that could potentially, under planning, say, you know, it's identified specifically referenced as a potential resource. And then we could have something in here that is, does or does not conflict with other planning goals for the region, because if you have conflicting goals, right, it's very much a, do we buy this as well? It's not all upside, right? We could, I think it would be relatively easy to say that the most recent acquisition, the Hertzler acquisition, not far from an ideal housing lot. The topography,
Yeah.
it's not that with enough engineering and dynamite, you can build a driveway on anything. But, you know, putting that aside, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to do that. And so we could easily say, despite the fact that this area is currently noted as it's a area for residential development, residential development of this lot would not be easy, and therefore it's easy for us to recommend that this would
Yeah.
be a good lot. We've talked a bit about development pressure with open space acquisitions, right? And in terms of lots of properties under development pressure, that doesn't mean that certain places shouldn't be developed, but if there is a place that should be preserved, we can say that given the development pressure, if the area that is suitable for housing on this were to be built on, it could endanger these critical functions. And I think that just kind of has
Yeah.
to come out in whatever the report is. I don't know, I'm not meandering towards a concise thing, but I'm
Yeah.
putting out an idea here.
Yeah, yeah, but the other thing is, this document should be a list to help us compose why a property should be purchased.
Mhm.
Are historically, if we've decided a property should not be purchased, we've communicated that, almost want to say informally through staff to the council, or even stood mute on a response to a referral. You know? Because one of the things I've always been concerned about, if we come out and do a flat no, what happens in 3 decades when the property comes up and it makes sense to acquire it because we bought property on both sides, or what, or been given property, or whatever, you know, that things change.
But I'm thinking that that list of potential problems, those are problems that are not going to go away.
No.
Like a dam,
Yeah,
Yeah.
toxics.
yeah, that there are negatives to
Yeah.
consider.
Yeah.
But as I say, that there may be times, we've got to be very careful to phrase it so there are things to consider and not automatic reject.
Right, right.
I like Miranda's considerations, you know, phrasing,
She said precautionary.
yeah,
Or cautionary.
yeah, cautionary, you know, considerations.
And if it's cautionary considerations, Michael could add something about is in conflict with other planning.
Yeah,
Well, but it would be, in other words, the whole town is zoned for development, basically.
Yeah.
So it would be in conflict with whatever the zoning is for that property. I mean, automatically in conflict.
yeah,
Yeah,
It seems
So-
like
Okay.
that, regardless of
That's a-
whether that's a question to be in there, it's something to be cognizant of. In if there's a property that meets all the criteria to be bought, and it's recognized by this committee that there might be a conflict, then that might be worth addressing. But it seems like to bring it up as a have to consider thing is
yeah, I
gonna
think,
get a little weird.
yeah, I think it will come out into discussion anyway.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we need a call, we can call it out if we think it's an important, but I don't think we want to put it in the list.
That's fair.
yeah,
A question I've heard whisperings of as we talk about the topic is we should have good, positive reasons to acquire land. Like we should not just buy land for the sake of buying land. An open space acquisition should have specific
yeah.
positive things we
Right.
want to get. This is my-
Criteria.
Yeah.
Except for the cautionary considerations. Can I go
Yeah.
through those just,
Yeah,
Let's go through them.
the first one was, we've had at least 2 parcels we've looked at that have had potential environmental cleanup costs.
Yeah.
Thank goodness Ken is on the committee.
yeah,
Yeah.
All I can say. Because
Yeah,
he
really.
spotted it right away.
And-
Finger right on it.
That, I don't think the trash and debris is a deal breaker,
I don't think that's a big deal.
but
matter of fact.
Heavy metal.
cost to the towns.
Matter of fact, we were given Merrill Meadow because the Merrill family didn't want to deal with that.
But it wasn't full of lead and cadmium.
A dam, I think, is obvious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Natural features pose an attractive nuisance.
Like
One,
50 foot?
well, 50 foot,
Yeah.
It's a great rock climbing spot. It's 50 feet of cliff.
yeah.
But
Another one that would,
the
I
natural,
would want to see the town buy. If, and I've never been there. But it's owned by Moskowitz. It's right across from the Joshua's Trust property of the grist mill. It's potholes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. I've trusted them.
They're glacial potholes.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah,
wonderful natural feature. Glacial potholes are really cool,
yeah.
but it's also a climbing area.
Yeah, I'm, But there again, the natural features law has been extended to clearly apply to municipalities, so, you know, the liability is greatly reduced
Mhm.
if you don't charge. You know,
And so it's maybe not a important feature, but I can see if we're buying a cliff, somebody in town is gonna say, did you
Yeah.
think about it?
yeah,
Mhm.
but if it's
Yeah.
articulated here, we remind people of it.
So it's Moscow.
Even if you don't pose a financial liability for having an attractive nuisance where people are gonna hang out and climb on stuff and light fires.
Fall off.
And fall, right? Even if you're not liable for that, you become responsible for it because you now are dedicating staff time to trying to deal with it. And now you're trying to deal with people doing things in the middle of the woods, which is an incredibly difficult thing to chase down. I wouldn't know anything about that. So even if you're not financially liable from a getting sued standpoint, when you become responsible for something that could cause an attractive nuisance that is known for it, it becomes a headache of management. Conversely, attractive nuisances are attractive because they're cool. So people want to use them, right? Like what's the line between people using 50-foot in the responsible way because they like being at 50-foot and looking at stuff and not because they started climbing on rocks, right? Like it's people are gonna use it and
And then that depends on the style that people climb on the rocks
Right.
too,
Mhm.
you know.
right. So, you're right that it's a consideration. I guess the question is if posing liability, if the current case law supports the idea that you don't really gain liability from these things as long as you're not charging, then do we leave it in here? Is attractive nuisance something that we should really consider if liability isn't a part of it?
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is we approach that line with a very clear legal concept. Somebody looking at it casually, what will they assume? You know,
I'm thinking about the council looking at that
yeah,
and what their thoughts would be.
yeah, yeah, I don't, and the next one has to do with clear title. And that's actually when you start getting the lawyers involved for title search.
Or adverse possession.
Yeah,
There's no such thing as adverse possession against the town, though.
yeah,
But if it's not town property yet,
yeah.
Hmm.
See, and
Oh, what is the case law? That would be cool. Has that ever gone before?
yeah, the other thing is that one. What, how would it have kept us from moving ahead on Hertzler if we had known the condition of their title?
No. It
No.
wouldn't have discouraged us because it was something that could be solved.
But it might not have been successful in moving on it.
Well, and
Yeah.
then the town
We
would
have to
buy
solve
it.
it first.
Right.
Yeah, or that, it's actually in, but. Yeah, I'm not sure we want the one about potential liability and. Although easements and stuff, that's actually just a part of evaluating the property.
well,
But that's what this is part of, is
Yeah.
evaluating.
but I think
What about
attractive,
known adverse possession conditions or trespass or something? I mean,
So-
easements are obviously
so-
known or
so-
not known, the others
so-
you might not know.
Yeah, see, and there again, most property has some type of trespass occurring on it,
You know.
So it's only a few military reservations that, you truly prevent.
well, going back to liability, I think attractive nuisance is still something to consider as a negative.
I think it's hard
Like-
to define an attractive nuisance. What would you consider an attractive nuisance? I'm not asking you to think of an example right now, but it's a very sort of vague term.
The Fenton River. I mean, you can, anything is if you think of the right age of kid falling in.
Yeah, yeah, well, actually, it's my understanding that the original concept of attractive nuisance came from a factory that had a nice, clear pond that actually was acid,
No.
and kids went swimming.
Oh,
And nowadays, in brownfields, an attractive nuisance is a vacant factory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but
Great
Or any
place
vacant
to, it's a great
building.
place to break
Yeah.
into and go
Yeah.
trespass with your friends and smoke and. Yeah, it's every 80s and 90s teenager coming of age movie, right? It's filled with attractive nuisances.
yes, the haunted mansion,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
so, you know.
I was just trying to be pretty inclusive.
no,
yeah,
we're
you know,
we're definitely picking this one apart, but I
Yeah.
don't think that comes back on you doing a bad job. This is
No,
just,
actually, it comes on you doing an excellent job of stimulating discussion, you know.
yeah.
Yeah,
I guess these are negative considerations. So we can say, these are things to keep in mind if and we think about them as like, is there any reason any of this could possibly apply? The only reason we shouldn't keep it in there is if it gives a misleading or kind of like well poisoning, you lodge in somebody's head, this could be an attractive nuisance, right? So if we can't define it and if we worry that, because it's not even really defining it, it's if we worry that by leaving it in there, we're going to get people to start thinking, well, it's all attractive nuisances, right? And now people start arguing against certain acquisitions, then we shouldn't include it. But
Yeah,
if we're
that-
just,
that's what my fear is,
Yeah.
because we would have to, even if we address them in our recommendation.
Yeah.
People are still gonna say, well, your reasons aren't good enough.
Right.
And even if it doesn't pose liability, strictly speaking, sue the town. It does give the town costs, as you say, to try to chase down those kids building fires.
Yeah,
so if we just strike that bullet point, if we just strike the attractive nuisance bullet point, are there any other ones in here that seem off? I think they all otherwise are consistent, are specifically referencing things that we've dealt with, concerning things that have been considered and accepted or rejected, like what was it, 2 years ago now, the folks came with a proposal to offer us the lot that used to be the playground, that had since
Yes.
become overgrown, the subdivision.
Oh, right,
And again,
right,
like,
That's
that's the last bullet point.
Is in there.
Right.
yeah,
It seems like some of the problems with this attractive nuisance wording could be solved by adding more weight to the posing liability line, just by saying posing substantial liability. And then
Right.
you're less worried that people are gonna come out with, oh, well, I could trip over that branch on the ground. That's my thought.
could also have 3 examples, and, give consideration to precautionary considerations and, for example, then 3 things without listing all of these things. And then if,
yeah.
there was a liability thing, that could be,
I like
consider.
Miranda's idea of putting substantial, but we might want to include in there substantial and unusual liability.
Would you like me all to just pose this question to our attorney? Because we have an attorney.
Of course, you're gonna
But
have
I'll
to.
just- Right, so let me
Yeah.
just go to the attorney and
Yeah.
ask what specific language we would have to use. He owes me other language on a different liability document anyway, so that's fine. I'm gonna have to talk to him about that. So I'll ask about that and
Okay.
get the language on that one nailed down, but I think the rest of them look good to everyone.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
do we want to call out specifically invasive species anywhere on here? We talk about vegetation management in the second to last bullet point.
Could be management of vegetation that is not invasive.
That's very true.
That's true. If you
Yeah.
buying a property with 80% of the oaks dead
Yeah.
in the overstory,
Yeah,
That doesn't require any management at all. You just wait for the next hurricane. At that point, it's.
Recently, you didn't even need a hurricane.
It's all
It's
over.
So I have one question.
Yeah.
In looking through all these criteria, they are looking at things as they currently exist. Do we want to be able to say, under changing environmental conditions, certain habitats may be of significance?
Interesting.
So
I mean,
potential.
floodplains are in there, right? So that's a good thing. I've been trying to think of an example and I can't come up with anything, but I don't want to be
It's
not
no,
sure.
my first thought, Juliana, is like, we expect that like the current tree assemblage of the average Connecticut forest is going to change as climate warms, maples move north, we move to a more oak hickory base, but all of that is being much more complicated by, the various diseases we're getting hit with. But, we could say, if we had good data, we could say, this is an extant stand of this type of tree, which we would expect in the future based on current climate modeling, that, we might not have this in the future, and so it pertains to value based on current analysis. But that, I think, will probably live in the POCD or other planning documents, and so we can use that as part of planning. But it is good to start thinking about future proofing, or not future proofing, future looking, in terms of like this. We anticipate that this will be valuable as an open space resource well into the future, because we anticipate these things happening in the future, and we think that this will stick around. It's hard to know for certain what will happen, but is there a place that?
There's a converse to that, though. If we buy a white cedar swamp to protect it, but there's no hope of white cedar swamps continuing to exist, that's a negative. Why buy it?
Yeah.
Well, in that case, right, that's actually an interesting question of, if you buy a piece of land for open space and the reason you buy it, and note in your reason for buying it, is to preserve a resource, and then the resource disappears as a result of natural processes, should you then take it out of preservation and sell it because we failed, we did not accomplish our goal?
Yeah,
That's a nature conservancy problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
Come up.
yeah, white cedar swamps are hardly sustainable without some help.
But then there's the question of, do we want it? I mean, is there something wrong with helping?
Yeah.
But it's a cost, it's a
Yeah.
management cost, but it.
Well, the other one is holding or reversing succession on old fields.
Yeah.
So we have the old field habitat.
Well, that's a management decision, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is, if that's bought for the old field, then that's a cost to maintain it.
Yeah.
So that,
Well, we mow Merrill Meadow.
Yeah.
but if you, I mean, I think the Nature Conservancy did buy a lot of property and they didn't realize succession was gonna happen. And they lost the species they were preserving because they didn't really think through that
Right.
they gotta get in, and they didn't wanna harm their property by mowing.
Yeah.
What about those managing their grasslands out in front?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a, I think the point is that vegetation isn't static, and if there's, you bought it for a certain reason, you may have to maintain it. It's not a.
Yeah.
Necessarily negative, but it is a cost.
It's a
Well, that's why we have that
Yeah.
vegetation
And
management.
that's why we said
Yeah,
that
maybe
vegetation
vegetation
management.
there.
But, not relevant to us, but Nature Conservancy is gonna run into a lot of problem with all their preservation of coastal wetlands when sea level rises.
Oh, yeah.
6 feet.
Yeah, or even 6 inches.
It's already happening.
Exactly. It has been happening for quite a while.
I've always told our Parks Department, you should sell Rocky Neck now while it still has value.
There's a marvelous picture of people canoeing through the historic village at Mystic because of the sea level is up. Yeah,
We beat this to death.
I think we're set.
yeah.
It's inches from life.
Yeah.
Well, I can take these.
Interesting to hear what
On a-
Lloyd
on a-
has to say about it.
Bigger picture issue, Michael.
Hmm?
Will we ever see whole
Chapter
chapters
three.
to review?
Yes. So first, thank you for going through this today. This is very helpful to make sure that this gets. This is a useful part of the POCD. So
Be used.
it is a part of the POCD that actually gets used now, which means that it will probably get used in the future. Second, as to your question of where are the chapters, that's a very good question. I am very sorry that you don't have them now. Our consultant, after kind of beating their head against the wall on reorganizing the chapters while writing them, asked if they could kind of fundamentally invert the way they were doing things, where what they did is they took all of the goals, actions, strategies that we worked on at the beginning and then began moving them around. So basically, they broke down the old chapter structure and broke them down into the rough goals of the chapters, took every goal out and assigned them to chapters new, such that things that were previously infrastructure that had previously been grouped into the natural resources chapter, but that were recommending changes to infrastructure as to reporting on natural conditions, move over to the infrastructure chapter. So trying to break down what are like the fundamental things this chapter is supposed to be talking about, and then goals and actions that are supposed to be clustered together, moving stuff around. And they handed us back a bunch of these and said, here's our proposed reorganization, where we will now move the text. Now that if you agree with this, staff, we will now move the text that was pertinent to those goals to the appropriate chapters. This will be some chapters getting shorter, some chapters getting longer, some stuff will just move a little bit around. And so we responded to them. I provided them response for chapters 2, 3, and 4 yesterday. I'm in the middle of working on 5. We have 6, 7, and 8 on Monday. And then so by Tuesday of next week, we should have gone through every single one of these, and then they will begin moving their blocks of text around now that we've consented to that. They, in the meanwhile, have been writing the blocks of text for the pertinent strategies and actions, and with the intent of, once they do some transition paragraphs and things like that, being able to kind of block move this around. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know if this will work or it will not. I am choosing to be optimistic because it doesn't cost me anything to be an optimist. November, I'll have something for you all in November when we meet next. I would like to have.
You hope.
God, do I hope so. It's fine. We've already written the template letter of we're to the state apologizing for not having the POCD done and asking for an exemption that will just attach to every grant application we need. In the meanwhile, while we're working on it, it's coming. We're working on it.
Yeah.
It's a Mansfield project. It takes 9 months longer than anything else that it normally does.
The 9 months, we're getting better.
Because you hire consultants who make it. If this had been in-house, this would not be happening.
There is a discussion to be had as to whether or not consultants should be hired in the interest of taking time off staff, because does it really take time off staff? But that is, I think, something that we can talk about after this project is done. Just need to get through the project and we need everyone working together right now. So I'm
Yeah.
very sorry that we don't have chapter 3 yet
That's
or the
fine.
updated chapter 2.
And is chapter 2 pretty much intact from what was discussed? Or has that been taken apart also?
So not much moves out of chapter 2. The only things that move out of chapter 2 in the reorganization, the only things that move out of chapter 2 is kind of the viewing dams and their management as more infrastructure to be managed as opposed to a natural feature, because they are part of the water courses and that will be mentioned in there. But in terms of like what we have to do about them, it's not a natural resources management thing. This is an infrastructure management. The other thing, the other change to chapter 2 that's substantial is I think we move 1 or 2 things in from chapter 3. Chapter 2 and chapter 3 traded things a little bit as we tried to be like, this is natural features and this is like open space and how we use natural features. The only other thing is the 2015 plan talked about climate change and natural hazard mitigation as one thing. That is not one thing. That is 2 things. The climate change part of chapter 2 is supposed to pull the most recent climate change data and talk about what we expect Mansfield to, how we expect the climate to change here, what our expected consequences will be. You know, how is it doing to our rainfall patterns versus total rainfall? Like, what's it going to do for overall climate? What do we anticipate this stuff coming out of the most recent COP reports? Then in the infrastructure chapter, that is where natural hazard mitigation belongs, because that belongs in based on the climate data, which we reported, which is natural data. This is what we are doing to respond to it. So we had to bifurcate that section and then think about it this way. And because that section is pretty much, as is written in the 2015 plan, like 90% natural hazard mitigation, that requires going in and kind of scraping new data from sources like the current climate plans and the international level, and then building those from scratch. But that's the like expected changes to chapter 2. The consultant noted that attempting to make it shorter as a plan is a bad goal. The plan should not be made shorter for the sake of being made shorter. It should be made less wordy, because Lord knows it's very wordy, and I mean I'm involved and I'm wordy, so it's not going to get that much less full of words. But you know, we can be more concise without losing critical information, and so that is the goal. And so that's what we're expecting. Chapter 3, you know, a couple things move around, but again, it's what moves into infrastructure, and then what moves into like future planning, what's land use, some of the stuff that talks about zoning goals that stop talking about zoning goals in other chapters, move them into the future land use chapter, and stuff like that. So that's what we can anticipate.
So hopefully November we'll be able to have a meaningful discussion.
Yes, I would very much like that.
I was just hoping that maybe we could have that special meeting in October, but guess not.
If it's available in October, I could give it to you all then, but we've seen a lot of each other of late, and it's not that I don't like seeing you fine people, it's that I'm sure you want to do something else than have meetings.
You'll give it to us when
You'll get
have
it, and then you will read it and we will discuss it when
Yeah.
we get together.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
We'll
Interpret.
play that night.
Okay,
Yeah.
that brings us down
There
to
you go.
new business, interpretive signage at Merrill Meadow.
Now, what did you mean there? Did you mean the fact that the signage is not there anymore?
Yes, so that's actually
So the-
exactly what I was going to bring up. So the way that the signage was set up at Merrill Meadow is there were numbers on posts, stations for people that are, there's the sign at the beginning of the park, right? That like shows people what's at each station, and then there were the numbers on the posts, right?
Yeah.
That was how it
Yeah.
worked.
Right.
That's not there yet.
And that's not there anymore. So we want to replace that. But the thing that Jay was thinking about was, well, we could just put the numbers back on the posts. But would it be better to make those a little bit more and have the specific educational material on signs at those locations?
Okay,
Because you know, my understanding was like you could walk through that with like the pamphlet, right?
Yeah.
The map in
Okay.
hand, and you
Yeah.
could like read that. But the question then becomes, how many people actually do that versus how many people would benefit from just having that information on the sign there so that they can engage with it there
I
without
agree with. the
forward
second
preparation.
one, But
Yeah,
that's the other
It
thing.
is more money. It is more money. But somehow we have money for signs.
Good.
So there's sign money. So the question with that is, if it seems good to this group that in addition to that, we'll get the individual language printed on those signs.
Yeah.
What should we choose for those? Sue, do you have the language that you think would be appropriate at each of those stations? Do you want to brush it up? Because this is a great time.
I'll volunteer.
In the 1990s, so yeah, I'd have to
Gotta
look
be
at
updated,
it.
If you'd like to,
Yeah,
Yeah,
as I've said before to this committee, if it's older than me, it's worth looking at again.
Oh, it's old.
yeah. The other.
I was thinking of, I sent you an email about the sign where the tree fell on it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
That's the other,
yeah.
Yeah,
the other concern.
yeah, the other thing we have to keep in mind is what's happened at Eagleville Preserve. Some of the signs are missing. So that.
Yeah.
Some are missing
Charlotte was
arrows.
able to conjure up the
Yeah.
text by some miracle.
the
Well,
nicer
you know,
so
we have to
sign, the
make-
more likely it
Yeah,
is to
those
take a
are
hike.
beautiful signs.
Yes,
Given the potential for vandalism and the fact that most people have
Yeah, that's
these things,
yeah.
my thought.
Yeah,
what about a QR code to the pamphlet?
yeah,
That would also work.
The,
yeah.
the Eagle ones. did
Eric
have-
Thomas has the sign, and for some reason, I can't figure it out. The tree fell down, it took part of the other tree down, and the sign itself was okay.
Survive. The
Great.
frame,
The
the frame
frame
is 7,000
and
little pieces.
the,
and sign
That's
is
the
fine.
cheap part.
Yeah, it's
That's
fine.
fine.
The feet, which were in cement. The cement's still there.
It's really funny because it's a pile of.
It's
all
hard
these
to
little
reuse
pieces.
cement sometimes.
Yeah.
So it might be good to get a hold of Eric Thomas.
I emailed Eric earlier today, we're
Okay.
trying to,
Probably did.
we got a whole bunch of stuff to manage on the Willimantic River, and he's been really helping with the water chestnut.
Oh, he's
So,
great.
Yeah, so he and I, we've got a Coventry Mansfield.
And somehow the Lost Green Valley gets involved too. I'm not.
He's got yeah, the Last Green Valley, it just has money sometimes randomly and they get involved in these things, but yeah, I'll get the sign from him. And then Sue, if you have that language, what I'm probably gonna do is I'm going to Charlotte, I'm kind of run at the same time as we decide these marrow signs. I'm gonna send the order to reprint the Sippy Wig, the invasive signs.
Yeah, what those had QR codes on them, I'm not sure. if
Yes,
that goes
I
with
don't
QR.
know that those go somewhere anymore.
There might be.
And
Probably not.
If it's somewhere else.
Right, so that's what I'm thinking is I'll pull out those QR codes instead. I'll create like a nested page on the town's website for the town's parks page,
Okay.
for those, and then we can do the same for QR
And-
codes.
And
for
get
the
ID
people.
to guarantee that the reference won't change.
Yeah, I should get permalinks from IT. That's an important, thank you.
Things change.
That's a retired web developer.
See, that's a good point.
And I haven't been out there onto the gravel area, but there was another tree across the gravel area.
Yes.
When they went out and got the first tree, did they cut the second tree or you don't know?
I haven't been out there.
Well-
I got because I was on vacation last week.
Yeah, I
I took
know.
a vacation for once. And so I emailed Will when I got back about did you take care of the trees? And he said yes.
Okay.
Okay. they
But
probably did.
I don't know if he got the other one. We'll check in.
We'll check it over the weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it's not, just shoot me an email and I'll.
Yeah, I will.
Metal tree. What, was that identification right, that we had a tree of heaven growing there, or?
I've got to look at it more carefully.
think
It-
so.
There is something that grew very quickly because there was earlier in the summer, there was nothing there.
Yeah,
I'm not that familiar with it and I didn't want to charge off through the debris,
Yeah.
the field to look at it more closely. My initial photos that I took and looked at the write-up on it,
Yeah.
I don't think it is. I
Yeah.
think
Just black
it's more
walnut?
likely that it's a walnut.
a walnut, or
But-
one of the
There's
Sumac.
fork tree too, or
Yeah.
some
Yeah,
fork tree you wouldn't.
Yeah, no, it's not sumac, I
yeah.
got.
No, it's
The-
not so much.
But it said that the, the great big long compound leaves of tree of heaven, that the bottom.
There's a little shoulder.
Like this.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
little,
yeah.
there's little lumps on the
We
bottom.
couldn't
one,
find
and
any.
The picture that I took was pretty clear and I didn't see anything that looked like that.
That's what I
But-
thought, that it,
Yeah.
They're not very
It
big.
grew really fast.
Walnut also, a lot of times the final leaflet isn't there, it aborts, so it comes along and. You'll have that final one.
Yeah, I,
yeah.
none of the pictures
None of them.
showed the real end of the leaf, because they kind of,
Yeah.
oh, and the bindweed is all over it, so
Oh,
that
yes.
can't really see great details on it. But I say it grew really fast because it wasn't, I mean, I was laid up for a little while because I had a little tumble. But
Ooh,
it didn't, it wasn't there, and then it was there, so it
Yeah.
grew really quickly.
I think
But-
it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Below everything.
That's what
Um,
my analysis.
one other
was,
thing, and-
You're consistent with what I saw when I looked at the
Not
photos.
possibly
Oh,
big.
mowing
And-
schedule for this year.
Yeah, we want to do one half, right?
Yeah.
One half. the-
Yeah, I would
forward.
say to
It's in
do,
my
I don't
packet.
remember what I wrote.
Before
down.
the apple tree?
The half by towards the parking lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Three to the parking lot
Okay,
would be my.
To that,
Yeah.
the apple tree, which seems to be dying too.
I pitched that idea to Jay and he said, sure.
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
And they've been
do
doing
that.
a good job with the
Right.
cuts around.
So,
We have them, we have them properly trained.
Yeah,
Yes. So we have a staff change.
So-
Yeah.
parking lot half a field this year.
Yeah, because there is some more woody vegetation coming in there, so
Can do.
lopping that off was.
Yeah,
And I said there was a few woody shrubs at the other end that 10 minutes with a pair of clippers would take care of, so
yeah.
I'm not gonna lose a lot of sleep over them. And if they want to do anything on the other side of the path, I would hope that they would ask one of us to go out with them and say, yeah, that's okay, and that's not okay, because
Maybe you should do more than hope, you should demand.
yeah.
we,
There's not really, as I think we discussed earlier, if there's a few invasives and we want to teach people about invasives, that might be a good area to be able to say.
Behold.
Here is
you know,
Yeah, but we have all that stuff at Eagleville for that purpose.
we also have a sessile trillium that's been coming up for what, 3 or 4 years?
Poor little plant.
3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
And it's
It doesn't belong
only
here,
supposed
but
to
it's
come to
cute.
New York. There are some places in Western Connecticut that find it once in a while, but it's pretty reliable, thankfully. It's very rare.
So we should get one of those natural resources database circles.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, once everything grows up around it, it's fine.
Yeah.
We also have turtle head coming up,
Oh, that's
which
all.
is not quite as abundant as it was last couple of years.
Yeah.
The deer ate it in my yard, I've lost it.
Deer eat
The
everything.
deer ate it in my yard. I had
Really?
it- Yeah, I had it years ago and they just.
Yeah.
That was the white turtle head.
Yeah,
So that's pretty much all we have, I
Yeah.
think, right?
Okay,
Anybody
Yeah.
else got other reports?
just a few October extravaganzas coming up.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna go glop around in,
They still have
On,
October
see what-
brochures down there?
I do still have October brochures.
Okay, so you haven't run out of them yet.
I have not run out of them. I gave some to Margaret to distribute. I gave some to the town clerks so that they could get them out. I've still got some, but we still got
just
October
hoping people
brochures.
show
If
up.
you need
for
more,
walk,
just-
we can-
Will do.
Drop a line and I can.
One of the
bring some
years
up.
that we did this, the big bryozoan colonies
Oh,
that
yeah.
look like jellies, have you ever seen those? they're just disgusting, but like.
Not
Yeah, exactly. I say
disgusting
they're
by its own
disgusting
ends.
in
Jeez.
the way that a
Coming off.
10-year-old would go completely
Yeah.
crazy if they scooped it up with a net and
Yeah.
it looks like jelly with stars on the outside of it.
Yeah.
It's just delightful and it feels just really disgusting.
Okay.
So it's
Fine.
gonna be
Okay.
really popular.
Okay. Okay. Do we have anything for executive session?
I have a report.
Yes,
Oh, okay, yeah.
So one of my friends and colleagues who lives on 195 and their property abuts Schoolhouse Brook Park recently asked me about the bike trail situation in there. And his reason for it was that he said that, you know, when he goes walking back in Schoolhouse Brook Park, it's gotten to the point where the trails for the bikes are much more evident and better kept than the trails that that are maintained by the town for walking. And he was just expressing concern about the state of the town's trails, especially because relative, he just said you can't tell that you're not on a town trail. The bike trail in many places is just so much more prevalent. And also was just saying that, you know, he probably knows some people who would get together and be willing to volunteer to help clean up town trails or maintain them as well. So he was offering help in that way. But I thought it was an interesting observation that should be noted and added to our ongoing discussions of the issue. Because you know, I've thought about risks and other things that associate with the bike use on trails, but I'm not sure that to what extent it really occurred to me that part of the problem is that people are simply getting lost on these trails because it does not, because the bike path is more prominent than,
Yeah, so we spent quite a bit of time making sure that Oak Ridge was blazed quite clearly. And there are several other ones like Stone Bridge that should be blazed. you
So,
know.
yeah, there's a report on what's going on with that. Is that staff had a meeting with New England Mountain Bike Association, Quiet Corner chapter, who want to assist us in determining exactly what's out there and creating some sort of a harmony in terms of eliminating the illicit bike trails and then creating trails in that section of the park which are multi-use, wide enough for both cyclists and pedestrians, and are suitable not only for cyclists who are really good at cool jumps, but also folks of all skill levels. We said, okay, that sounds great. Preliminarily, they said that what they would do is they would begin just by mapping the trails and going out with their GPS, mapping the trails, which ones are bike versus which ones are pedestrian in the area, so that we have that most recent data. And then from there, we would get together and they think that what would be really useful is having a trail steward for that area, specifically for the mountain biking community, because that seems to have worked in other areas by giving some sort of ownership. It's not ownership, but like someone whose role it is to steward those trails begins to build a concept of community with someone having authority, particularly if it's endorsed by the town, like this is the bicycle area trail steward. And then from there, we can begin working with them on, okay, where is it appropriate and how can we make it suitable for this? And then we can mobilize resources to work on widening trails. They said normally we're a volunteer organization, but people in our organization like to go out and volunteer on a Saturday. We get 5 or 6 people together. We'll go build some trails and ride them. And that's something we'll do if the town is willing to pay for some basic, materials. We will do construction where the town says it's appropriate for construction. And so what we said was we would love to get that updated map from you. And then if you have ideas for a trail steward, we would love to set up a meeting just to preliminarily discuss what this looks like, not committing to anything, because obviously it's a change in the use pattern and we want to make sure that that's appropriate for the area. based on good information, based on the preference for yourselves and town council. But we think that this is the first time we've gotten a significant group of folks who are riding mountain bikes who are working with us, and I would really, really like to keep that
Yeah.
burgeoning relationship going. So I have to follow up with them next week on when we're gonna have our first meeting. But I think that some movement after a substantial amount of time of no movement. In the meanwhile, whether we should double down on our efforts of making our trails more visible in that area is a whole different question. So getting a reblaze in that area and then widening trails,
Yeah.
or at least re-raking pathways. That's definitely something that we can do. Miranda, do you have that person's contact info so I could speak with them?
Yes. You are somewhat familiar with some of the people involved.
That doesn't surprise me. But it'll be fun to walk down memory lane. So
We've done several of the trails, but the one that is outstanding is Stone Bridge and part of the Barrows Trail that I can think of setting here without looking at notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's, I haven't been out there in a while, but I know that there are some trails that the bike people made that were not any of the original town trails.
There are quite a few.
They wrote them in the ground. They
Well,
look
what
like
I
a
have
trail.
done
Yeah.
was I've gone to their website and done a screen capture of that part of Schoolhouse Brook Park, taken it in and geocoded it and laid it into the town trail map I have for that area. And I have shared prints with a couple of people of that. That it's quite, revealing that where their net goes and
Yeah.
and also their mapping of town trails is probably better than the one that's on the town website.
Could very well be. Well, there's a few of the town trails that, I mean, have always been really hard to walk. I mean, they're really rocky and, so I don't think people really walk them that much because they're very hard to travel on.
Well, the
But-
Nipmunk, that section of the Nipmunk crosses a boulder train
Yeah,
on the glacial boulder fields.
yeah.
And I avoid walking that section of the trail.
But they've made an excellent connector, like where you connect to the Nipmuc and then towards the.
Yeah, but
road.
remember the routing of the Nipmunk is technically not
No,
town.
not
We,
the
we
town.
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
we have licensed it.
Anything with that.
Well, we can. We've actually worked on rerouting part of the Nipmunk through 50-foot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's like changes in the land structure or something, or.
Yeah.
Gigantic.
Well, that section in 50-foot where it was washing really bad, working
Yeah.
with John Hankins, it's been rerouted.
Yeah, that was really necessary because that part was
Yeah.
getting really bad.
But at
Yeah.
some point, and this is probably not the time to mention it, but I will anyway, that we might want to get someone who's very knowledgeable about the ceremonial stone landscapes that the Native Americans made, because the bike people have found them to be very useful in constructing jumps.
Yeah.
And we particularly do not want, in my opinion, those trails to be maintained as bike trails.
Yeah. Yeah, there are as many structures in 50-foot now that I know
Yeah,
what to
in
look
Schoolhouse
for.
Brook.
Well, in Schoolhouse Brook, 50-foot, I haven't noticed any, but I don't know what's down at the bottom. But as in Simpson Wood,
Yeah.
there's.
Oh, the Native American.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It's got the right kind of water set up.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with some folks of UConn's archaeology department. I will reach out to them and figure out who they recommend.
Elaine Thomas. and
Elaine
Mohegan.
Thomas joined us and Lucinda,
Lucianne Laven.
Lucianne Laban from, American Indian out in Washington.
She's retired, but I think
Is she?
Elaine has been
I'll-
more
I'll-
active
I'm-
in this.
I know Alexia Smith over at UConn's Department of Archaeology very well. She
Yeah,
knows, she will know who to reach out to.
That sounds good.
Um,
yeah.
so
I found it very interesting walking Simpson Wood with them. I learned an awful lot.
And it was a horribly cold day. It was so nice they came out.
Yeah.
those are all good things to keep in
Yeah.
mind as I.
Have a small note. The name Coney Rock has mystified people for a long time, and there have been various suggestions. The first record of it being called Coney Rock is 1710,
Whoa, that's way back.
and that made me think this is probably some version of a Native American name for that feature
Yeah,
that we never, ever considered.
Yeah.
But I mean, considering how close it
but-
was to the original settlement,
Mhm.
Yeah.
thinking this is probably what it was called before they even got here. And they just, as they have taken over many other Native American names,
Hmm.
I said, this might be some version of a Native American word.
Yeah, that might be
Connecticut.
something to ask.
I don't know who to ask.
You know,
There's some people at Pequot trying to revitalize their language. It's possible.
I'm just wondering if someone would recognize it, who's
Yeah.
familiar
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're the people
Algonquin.
looking at language.
with the Algonquin language.
yeah,
Yeah, anyway, that's it.
yeah.
No, that's interesting. That's,
I know.
because often when I see something like that, I would think a family name, but if it goes back that far.
I would have thought rabbits.
Yeah, misidentified.
Oh, I know,
rabbits
people have
or
thought
what.
rabbit,
Yeah.
family names, etc. Personally, I think it's a Native American word. That's
I
about
like
it.
A white man attempted Native American
Yeah,
word.
exactly. Exactly.
It was really Coney Gunk.
Who knows?
Yeah,
Something.
yeah. So,
Other thoughts? Anyone? Other thoughts? I mean, we could go into executive session for 5 minutes, but it's not pertinent. We can wait till the next. There's nothing urgent.
October's coming.
Yes, it is.
okay,
So,
so,
Does everybody have that brochure?
okay,
If you don't, they're in my office.
okay, yeah.
yeah, they're all in your office. Huh,
Yeah.
Just let me know if you run out.
Future meetings, you're gonna send a poll for when to do,
Yeah,
Door
probably
walk,
2
Lions
to 3
Field.
weeks from now for Door at Lions Field,
No.
and then we'll do 2 or 3 weeks after that for Shelter Falls. Great.
no thunderstorms. when we
No
put it
thunderstorms.
Okay,
I will peer into the
Enough.
future. I will
Yeah.
get out my crystal
Okay.
ball.
enough of that.
down. Okay, so I think we're at, motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Anybody opposed?
Great. 9:14.
Thank you.
Thank
Greta,
you.
Yeah, I actually have a question for